Today I'm going to be trying another recipe from King Arthur flour, and I have been making some sourdough bread with their no-knead sourdough recipe, which I absolutely love, and I wanted to try some more from the site. And I fed my starter this morning and I was looking around for some new things to do, and I found their pizza recipe. So I wanted to use it to make pizza dough, but I wanted to try making a few changes. So instead of using yeast, I want to try doing it 100% with the sourdough starter because I had fed my starter. The recipe called for sourdough discard, but I had already fed mine, so that's why I was thinking about omitting the yeast and seeing if I could do it just all on its own. And it's rising really well, and it's doubled in size, and it's floating right to the top, so it passes the float test. So I'm going to try this with just sourdough starter and no yeast, and I'm going to let it rise a little bit longer. It is about 12 o'clock on the first day, and I'm going to use this for dinner tomorrow, so I'm going to give it about 2 days. So the first thing that I'm going to do is weigh everything out. And the first thing is 227 grams of the sourdough starter, which is about 1 cup. Now it's 113 grams of lukewarm water. And the other change that I was going to make was I'm going to be using bread flour instead of all-purpose flour. And I'm just hoping for the best on that. And the real reason why I'm doing it is because during the quarantine, I bought a 50-pound bag of King Arthur flour, patent flour, which is a higher protein flour, and I'm trying to use it up. So I'm going to do 298 grams of patent flour, but the recipe calls for all-purpose, and that's about 2.5 cups. So I'm going for 298 here. And then I'm going to do 1 teaspoon of salt. And then this whole thing is going to go together in the mixer with the dough hook. I'm going to continue kneading this for 7 minutes, and then I'm going to place it in my rising bucket or just a bowl covered until it doubles in size. Then I'm going to put it in the refrigerator overnight. Yesterday I let the dough rise for many hours at room temperature until I was able to do the poke test. That was at 12 in the afternoon, and at around 5 o'clock I put it in the fridge overnight, and now I'm going to be making dinner with it tonight, and it's been sitting in the fridge, so I want it to come to room temperature and to rise up again. I saw a lot of action. It was definitely rising. You can even see all of the action from the bubbles there. So I'm just turning this out onto a board, and I'm going to let this come to room temperature for at least an hour. And then I will shape it for pizza. Okay, my dough has been sitting at room temp and it's got the poke test. It's all good to go. So I'm just going to oil the parchment paper. I've stretched that out. I have a couple of holes from stretching, but I am just squishing those back together. And I'm going to let this rise a little bit because I still felt the dough and it was a little cool. So I'm going to give it a little more action at room temperature, about 20 minutes. While this is rising a little bit, I'm just going to put together the toppings. I have one 28-ounce can of tomatoes. And I'm just going to crush up the tomatoes roughly. For this application, I'm not going to be cooking the tomatoes. So you want to, if you can, find San Marzano tomatoes or your favorite brand of sweet, very flavorful tomatoes. I'm going to take 1 clove of garlic and grate it. Now I've got about a teaspoon of fresh oregano. I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt, freshly ground pepper. Now I'm going to sauce the pizza. Do a little drizzle of olive oil on the edge, some basil, and I'm going to bake this without cheese at 550 degrees. If your oven smokes at 550, you could do this at 500, but try to get it as hot as you can. And I'm going to bake this until I see the bottom of the crust getting really nice and brown, and also the sauce concentrating and the liquid evaporating. Okay, it's been about 15 minutes in the 500-degree oven, and I just want to show you guys what I'm looking at as far as the crust. Okay, so I have some really nice browning here. I'm probably a little soggier in the center, but it is going back in the oven with the cheese. But you can also see that at that temperature, a lot of evaporation happened with the sauce. It's a lot thicker now. And now I'm going to top it with the mozzarella cheese and put it back in the oven. This is about 2 cups. I'm going to put this back in the oven for 10 minutes and check it then. It was a little less than 10 minutes on the cheese. I don't really like it too brown. If you like it browner, you could leave it in a little bit longer. I'm going to slide this back off so that I can cut it. So I'm just going to stack up the basil leaves in a pile. Okay, I'm just going to roll those up and chiffonade the basil. The dough smells great. I can't wait to cut into it and try this 100% risen by sourdough starter pizza crust. There was no yeast in this, and ultimately it was really easy. The dough came together. I left it alone at room temperature, put it in the fridge overnight, waited a little bit for it to warm up to room temperature, just like I would any dough if I were to buy it from the supermarket. And it puffed up nice. It's got a great crust, an amazing smell.